reading from the Gospel according to Luke. Jesus said, "Who among you would say to your slave who has just come in from plowing or tending sheep in the field, 'Come here at once, take your place at the table'? Would you not rather say to him, 'Prepare a supper for me, put on your apron and serve me while I eat and drink, and later you may eat and drink'? Do you thank the slave for doing what was commanded? So you also, when you have done all that you were ordered to do, say, 'We are worthless slaves. We have done only what we ought to have done.'" The word of the Lord. Now, keen observers of the Gospel of Luke may notice that Jesus is, while filled with words of wisdom and how we should live our lives as disciples, Jesus seems to offer contradictions from time to time. And that's okay, not to be disparaging. I've watched people turn themselves into great knots trying to point out while the seeming ways in which Jesus contradicts himself from one statement to another, and they try to insist it's impossible. Jesus never contradicts himself, twist themselves into great knots doing so, and do us a disservice when in reality, sometimes Jesus is inconsistent in what he says. And that's okay. The circumstances change, times change, the people he's talking to change. He's at a different place in his life trying to teach a different lesson. Have you ever contradicted yourself in saying one thing in one time and then at another time realize that you're saying something different? So it's okay. The fascinating thing is what we can learn from those moments where Jesus says one thing in one circumstance and something else in a different circumstance. And we see here, this is the Gospel of Luke chapter 17, when Jesus says that he talks about being the owner of a slave and says that you wouldn't say to your slave, "Come and eat and drink." You would say, "Prepare a supper for me first, and that later you may eat and drink." Keen observers of the gospel may remember that it's just a few chapters earlier in Luke chapter 12 when Jesus says to them, "Be dressed for action and have your lamps lit. Be like those who are waiting for their master to return from the wedding banquet, so that they may open the door for him as soon as he comes and knocks. And blessed are those slaves whom the master finds alert when he comes. And truly, I tell you, he will fasten his belt and have them sit down to eat, and he will come and serve them." So which is it? Jesus, is the master supposed to find the slaves doing what they should do and out of pleasure have them sit and the master serve them? Or, like our reading from today, when Jesus says, when the servants do exactly what they're supposed to do, they won't get thanked for it. They're still supposed to serve their master. This is a great opportunity when you see a contradiction like this to stop and think about what Jesus is really talking about here. And what I hear is this is a story about grace. This is a story about how we don't want to take grace for granted, and we don't want to make the mistake of thinking that we've done something to earn God's grace, and therefore it's a given that we deserve to receive it. You see, it's great when the master is so pleased with the good work that his servants are doing that he decides to give them a treat. But they shouldn't make the mistake then of thinking that every time the master comes home and they've done what they're supposed to do, it means they should automatically receive that treat guaranteed to them, to the point where they're taking it for granted. Much in the same way, I think about times when I've had, maybe I asked my parents if I could stay up an extra hour past bedtime. Sometimes they may say yes, and that's a great treat. But that doesn't mean that sometimes the answer won't be no. And that has to be okay too. Sometimes I may ask my boss if I can take Monday off. And my boss may say, "Absolutely, that's great. You go ahead and do that." And that's a great treat. But there may be other times when my boss has a good reason for saying, "No, you can't take that day off." And that has to be okay too. It shouldn't be something I take for granted. And much in that same way, Jesus' grace, God's grace, It's a great gift when we get it, and we should be thankful for it, because it is like the Master heaping unexpected joy upon us, and we should revel in it and be thanks for the gift that we've been given. But it also doesn't mean we should take it for granted to the point where we stop giving thanks for it because we've just come to have it be an expectation. So like in our story from today, from Luke chapter 17, we need to be aware that God's grace, when we get it, it's a great gift. It's not something we should just assume to get to the point where we stop giving thanks for it. And in that way, Jesus offering one statement in one case and one statement in another case gives us a great insight into reminding us what a gift grace is and why we should be so thankful when we get it. Amen.